Hi, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of The Best Kept Secrets in Healthcare, the show where we share with you the secrets you're not going to hear anywhere else, not in mainstream media, not from your doctor, not in your papers on TV. So this episode is a big one of those, right? I mean, this is one of those that you really should know, but you don't. And it's something they're really keeping from you, but I don't know how they can, but they do. They do such a good job of hiding this stuff. They keep it within themselves, but this one's going to blow you away. The #1 cause of death in America. Okay, so Dr. Hartman, what do you think the #1 cause of death in America is?
Well, the #1 cause of death in America, at least labeled by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, states that the #1 cause of disease, or death, excuse me, in the United States is, as we know, heart disease. Right?
Heart disease.
Heart disease. Okay, now as we go down the list, the top 5, these are the top 5 causes of death based on the CDC's ranking. #2 is cancer, right? And as we know, there's so much awareness. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We've got all these different cancers. And we see that actually we've done these in the past. It's jumped from 3 to now it's the 2nd cause of death. Cancer is. #3 is a little tricky. It stands for it's chronic lower respiratory diseases, so that includes emphysema, COPD, allergies or asthma, particular things like that. They categorize all that together. #4 is accidents, okay? So that includes car accidents, that includes while we're putting up our lights on a Christmas tree, right, falling over, maybe dying from that, and that's categorized into accidents as the #4 cause of death. And then #5 is stroke. Okay, so we had #1, heart disease, #5, stroke through those. But we're here to talk about a different cause of death that, of course, the best kept secret cause of death that, the media does not want you to know about. Dr. Drury, what is that cause of death?
All right, so believe it or not, the #1 reason people die in the United States is from a condition called iatrogenic disease, iatrogenic death. What do you think? You haven't heard of iatrogenic death? You've heard of iatrogenic death?
I haven't seen it on TV.
Right. Well, so iatrogenic means doctor-induced. It means you would be alive today had you not done whatever your doctor told you to do. And so by following your doctor's instructions, it resulted in you dying, okay? Now, that means like adverse drug reactions, right? Doctor wrote you a prescription, you took it, and you died. It means a surgery that went bad, okay? You were supposed to go in and have something happen that should have been perfectly a piece of cake, but yet you didn't make it out. It could be hospital-induced infections, okay? Over 100,000 people die a year just from infections that they get while they're in the hospital. Matter of fact, on that note, I saw a thing in New York Times a few years ago said you're 6.5 times safer driving down the highway in your car than you are in a hospital with nothing wrong with you. That's scary alone, right? And then even like malpractice, okay? So these are things that you would be alive today had you not done whatever it was your doctor told you to do.
That's really scary, because that goes against really what we're brought up to believe, right? The guy in the white coat is equivalent to God, right? He knows what's best for you, what's best for your family. And to say that the #1 cause of death is from him or his prescription, I don't know if I can buy that.
Well, the scary part is it gets worse, actually. So 874,000 people every year in the United States are dying from iatrogenic death, are dying from doing what their doctor tells them to do. Now, 874,000 people, that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around, right? I mean, how can you imagine? How much is 874,000 people? Well, Dr. Hartman, if somebody died in a plane wreck, if a plane crashed in the United States, would anybody know about it?
There's no question. It'd be under, all over CNN or all those news channels, right?
I mean, if a plane goes down in another country, it's all over the news, right?
That's true, right.
So what if 2 planes went down in the same day? Would that make the news?
It would be a headline for the year,
exactly,
most likely.
Right? What if 6 747s, big planes fell out of the sky every day?
I assume
it'd be crazy, right?
They'd probably make a monument for it,
right? So that's what 874,000 people is. That's the equivalent to 6 jumbo jets, 747 big airplanes falling out of the sky every single day in the United States. Now, have you ever heard that in the news before? No. Would that be newsworthy to know that 6 jumbo jet planes crashing worth of people are dying every day in the United States? Well, of course it would. But how come you haven't heard of this? We can go down that rabbit hole for days, right? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. The bottom line is the same people that control the pharmaceutical industry, that control the medical industry, also control the media. So they control what you know and what you don't know. But that's why we created this show, so we can share this information with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't even imagine that number, 6 747s or 57s falling out of the sky per day. Now, the scariest thing is, you know, we were talking about this before, we're still affected by the effects of 9/11, right, in 2001. And roughly, I believe it was right under 3,000 people that day died.
3,000 people. There's a national monument. It's recognized every single year as the greatest tragedy in the, on American soil. But yet, on American soil, I don't even know how many times more that is, 874,000, at least 870,000 more people die every single year that shouldn't be dying from following their doctor's instructions. You realize that number, the number of people dying from iatrogenic death, is more than what the CDC recognizes as number 1 and number 2. So more people are dying from iatrogenic death than people dying from heart attack, heart disease, and cancer combined.
It's absurd. It's absurd. I mean, when we go down these statistics, you can really find out why. But we know someone that's, either died from cancer or died from particular medications. And a lot of times we don't know what the actual, cause was of their death. They say it was old age, or it was the cancer. But, how are we supposed to know that, it was doctor-induced? How can they properly label that?
Well, I've been teaching this for 20 years. And it actually even happened to me. There's a report called Death by Medicine. You can find it on the internet. Just type in Death by Medicine. If you go to the 3rd page of this, now this whole report, this is what we're basing this on, was founded, put together, and researched by 3 PhDs and 3 MDs, okay? And they just went out and they just put it all together. The research was already out there. They just compiled it so we kind of have a number. Now, if you go to page 3 on this report, the people who put the report together, they said they believe this number is at least 5 times to as much as possibly 20 times that amount. So that means they believe at a minimum there's probably 30, 6 times 5, 30 planes crashing every day in the United States. They say as a minimum. Now, where would they come up with that? Well, they say because these are actually documented, admitted cases of people dying from following their doctor's instructions. Now, as much as I hate to talk about this actually happened to me. Like I said, I've been teaching this for 20 years. My father-in-law was in a hospital about 6 years ago with an unrelated problem, but he has hemochromatosis, is a liver condition, genetic liver condition, in which his liver did not work as well as ours did. It just had a harder time processing certain foods and stuff like that. Well, so while he was in the hospital, he was taking morphine through an IV, which means it went straight into the bloodstream, so it didn't have to be processed by the liver. He was taking it just for pain management. Well, when he left, his liver doctor, the doctor who should know more about livers than anybody, his liver doctor, so should know more about his liver than anybody, wrote him a prescription for oral morphine, a pill. And I remember because my wife picked him up at the hospital, and she went around a bunch of different pharmacies to try to find this exact dosage in order to find it. He started taking it on Friday night, the day he got home. Saturday morning, he woke up and his feet and his legs were swollen. Jeez. He was thinking, well, I haven't been up, haven't been moving around a whole lot, so maybe it's just, coming from the fact of that, I'm walking and moving a little bit more now. Well, so nobody said anything to me. So the next day, my father-in-law wakes up and his legs look like tree trunks. He had no knees. They were swollen from the waist down to his feet, and they were this big around. And he had no knees. That's when they called me and they said, what do you think's going on? So I went over there and I said, what are you taking? Well, he's taking this morphine, and I looked it up online, okay? Just Googled it. Big red letters, first thing to pop up, do not give to someone with a liver condition. Okay? Yeah. So they called the hospital. The hospital said, you know what, it's Sunday. Just come on in tomorrow, being Monday, and we'll take a look, okay? Well, so they admit him in the hospital. When he woke up on Monday, he looked like the Michelin Man. His whole face, his whole body was swollen, okay? So my wife and I, well, they diagnosed him with hepatorenal failure. What that means was the liver became so over-toxified that the kidneys clammed up shut, and he wasn't releasing any fluid. He just kept swelling. So my wife and I scheduled a meeting with the liver doctor. We went in and talked to him, and I asked him, I said, so where do you think this hepatorenal failure came from? And he looked at me and he said, you know what, these things, sometimes they just happen. What a load of crap, right?
Right?
Things don't just happen. We live in a cause-effect universe, right? I mean, gravity, we live in a world of laws, okay? People's livers don't just shut down. If anybody ever tells you that, it's crap. So I told him, I said, you know what I think it's from? I said, you know he has hemochromatosis, right? He said, oh yeah, I've been his liver doctor for 10 years. I said, you also know you're not supposed to give morphine to someone with a weakened liver, right? And he looked at me kind of like, what? And he was like, no, you know. No, I never heard that. And I'm like, maybe you need to start Googling your drugs before you pass them out. Because it said big red letters, do not give to somebody with a liver condition. You know what his response to me was? Well, you know, you just can't believe everything you read on the internet. This was the PDR. This was the physician's desk reference. I mean, this is the Bible of drugs. It's where I got that information from. So make a long story a little shorter. 6 days later, my father-in-law died. 61 years old, otherwise normal, healthy man. In this situation, it was one dose. If you think about it, he took one dose. The next day, his legs were swollen, which means his liver, his kidneys had already clammed up tight. From one dose, he didn't have to take more than one dose to get that effect. It ultimately cost him his life. So one guy made a decision. Now, I'm not saying he tried to kill him on purpose, but he made a decision, and it was a wrong decision, to write one prescription, one dose that actually cost him his life. Otherwise, normally healthy man, 61 years old. Now, do you think that went into the iatrogenic category? Absolutely it did not, because we got the death certificate a couple weeks later in the mail, and it said he died of hepatorenal failure. I called the guy up and I said, listen, we need to change this. You said he died from hepatorenal failure. He actually died from iatrogenic disease. He actually died because of the prescription you wrote him. Of course, he knew what iatrogenic disease. Believe me, he was like, wait a minute. You know what? No. You know, of course, he's not going to admit to that. That'd be admitting malpractice. So that just goes to show you why they believe that number is 5 to 20 times 874,000, because these are actually cases where the doctor or the hospital or whoever they were admitted the result of this death was because of something that we did. Scary.
That's just so sad story. I know for yourself, but including the woman that you love, your wife. But to go through that,
the moon. I mean,
yeah.
It was. Totally unexpected, right? Just totally. And people watching this, you probably know somebody that's happened to, but maybe it was never totally explained to you. Maybe you never really figured out, well, you know, they were fine. They went to the hospital, and next thing you know, they didn't come out. Or, you know, they started, you know, all of a sudden their health just went, snow died. You know, I mean, it's scary.
You know, and that's why it is a scary topic to even talk about this, because it can almost take you on full face, you know, to go from, well, I couldn't do this, I've been with my doctor for years upon years, he would never, ever do anything to hurt me, but these are the facts, you know, these are, again, we're done by medical doctors and PhDs that came up with this research. We're trying to help save lives, obviously, through this channel and through these episodes.
Well, and it's not that they were intentionally trying to hurt you. Right. I don't think that they go into the profession with the idea, I'm going to hurt people, but, you know, the stuff that they're dealing with, you know, is life and death. And the difference between a prescription and a poison is the dosage and the person taking it. So for my father-in-law, that small dosage was enough to kill him, as to where for, you know, some other people that's not. So everybody's different. And so you can't put everybody into the same cookie cutter model that, you know, this symptom, take this drug, this symptom, you take this drug, because the stuff they're dealing with is really dangerous stuff.
Absolutely. There's no question. There has to be a better job on the medical profession. They've admitted to this about making sure that they label the right things. They check to do thorough health history. I've had plenty of stories of my relatives have been operated on the wrong side, you know, due to medical error, and unfortunately, as a result, they've died in the next upcoming weeks from that, because it was too far gone, and it saddens my heart. And we're all human here, but I think the best step in order to move forward and correct those mistakes is to admit, you know, to admit to these failures, to these iatrogenic deaths. And I think that's how we can move forward.
The biggest reason we share this with you is because we live in the information age, right? Just because somebody in a long white coat tells you to do something, it's your body. And I think you need to be proactive, take an educated stance, go in and do the research yourself. Now there's stuff all over social media. You know, you can find groups of people with similar conditions, find out what they're doing, what kind of medications they've had, what kind of side effects there are. I mean, it is a dangerous business, and nobody's going to care about you and your family as much as you and your family.
Absolutely.
So take this information to heart. Maybe, you know, we don't want you to be a statistic. We don't want people in your family to be a statistic. And if we can just open some minds and some eyes to what's going on and check out, you know, what somebody tells them to do, then it's all worthwhile to us. So that's why we wanted to share this information with you. We've seen it over the years. I've had patients that have come in that have been injured from some sort of medication. I've had a surgery that went the wrong way. And so we just want you to be an educated consumer, because we just want our people to be the happiest, healthiest people on the planet.
There's no question. I mean, if this message resonates with you, or you know someone that could hear this message, please, please make sure that you subscribe and they subscribe, and pass this and share this message along.
Yeah, please share, because there's a lot of people that aren't going to hear this. Like we said, you'll never find this in a newspaper. You're never going to find this on CNN. You can find it if you Google it. Like I said, Death by Medicine. You can find it there, and you can hear it from us. And if you have any questions, please post your comments below. We'll be happy to answer them. But be an educated consumer. Take the time to investigate whatever recommendations are ever given to you before you dive straight into it. So we appreciate you sticking around for this episode of the Best Kept Secrets in Healthcare, where we're going to share the secrets you're not going to hear anywhere else. And hopefully this will help you in your future healthcare goals. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.